Hey, a huge shout out to the Noted Gang. If you guys want to get featured in the next video, all you guys have to do is like this video, subscribe, post notifications on, and leave a nice comment with your gamer tag. We're gonna go over the top 5 ARs in Warzone Rebirth Island right now, and we're starting out with my personal favorite, the buffed Grog. Now this thing got a damage increase by 1 whole point, and we're gonna show you guys the class setup, starting with the monolithic suppressor for the sound suppression and increased damage range. You get a reduction of aim down sight speed and aim walking steadiness. That's not a big deal. This is the muzzle you definitely want to use. We're gonna move on to the Tempest 26.4 Archangel. Trust me, this is the best option. You get an increase of damage range, increase of bullet velocity, and increased recoil control. You get a reduction of aim down sight speed and movement speed, but look at all the green. All the green far exceeds literally any of these other ones. Now, if some people want to use FSS Nexus, the 20.8, that would literally more so be for like an SMG build, because you guys see you get more mobility, but you get a reduction of accuracy, damage, range, and control. This overall is a perfect build for the low recoil, the high range, high accuracy. We're gonna move on to the VLK 3x optic. This is the best choice, but aside from that, I'm actually gonna give you guys another tip about this VLK. We're gonna move on from that though. We're gonna put on the 60 round mags for the magazine ammo capacity. You're gonna get slightly less aim down sight speed and slightly less movement speed. If you don't care so much for that, you can throw on the 50 and you'll have a little bit more movement speed, but I think the 60 is actually the best choice. Throw on the Ranger foregrip for the recoil control and aiming stability. You get a reduction of aim walking movement speed and aim down sight speed. Now before we move on, there's something very important about the VLK. Like I said before, move over to customize, go to reticle, and make sure you put on the T-pose. This is gonna make it so this thing has even less recoil than it already has. So this thing is gonna literally feel like a laser, and it's because of this one thing, the T-pose. Moving on, even though the STG got slightly nerfed, this build right here did not get nerfed whatsoever. This is still a very overpowered build. We're gonna start with the MX silencer for sound suppression, horizontal recoil control, vertical recoil control, and increased damage range. You get a reduction of aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. We're going to throw on the VDD 760mm05B for highly accurate and controllable damage range, reduced scope sway and gun bob, and bullet velocity. You get decrease of sprint to fire speed, aim walking movement speed, and hip fire accuracy, but look at all the green you get. Absolutely worth it. We're going to throw on the SVT 40 PU scope. Now if you don't have that, you can definitely use the G16. It'll still be effective, just not as much magnification, but you do get an increase of recoil control. Throw on the VDD 27 precision for the horizontal recoil control and aim down sight speed. Once again, reduction of hip fire accuracy, which you don't need, a reduction of movement speed, but this is going to be more so about the mid to long range fights in the first place. Throw on sleight of hand for the reload quickness. If you can take on vital, then throw it on there, but I don't really think it's worth it. You can keep sleight of hand and it's still extremely powerful. Throw on hand for the increased aim down sight speed. Throw on pine tar grip for the recoil control and hip fire accuracy. It's not about the hip fire accuracy, it's about the recoil control, so you get a reduction of aim down sight speed. Throw on the 8mm Kurz 60 round drum. Do not use the 7.62 Gorenko 50 round mags. This may seem better on paper, but the thing is, you're getting a reduction of damage and bullet penetration. Even though you get an increase of fire rate and movement speed and aim down sight speed and recoil control, this is what's actually going to make it good. Because of the nerf that recently took place, this is basically going to be a pea shooter if you use this build right here. You need to use the 60 round so you can absolutely melt. It'll be a borderline like the EM2 and its finest glory. Throw on lengthen for the increased bullet velocity and Carver foregrip for the vertical recoil control and increase of hip fire accuracy. It's not about the hip fire accuracy, it's about the vertical recoil control. You get a slight reduction of aim down sight speed. Next, we're going to cover the Automaton. This thing is still absolutely amazing. Make sure you're throwing on the MX silencer for the sound suppression, horizontal recoil control, vertical recoil control, and increased damage range. This thing shoots incredibly fast and it's incredibly powerful, so make sure you start out with this. Make sure you guys know that this is a decrease of aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed, so that's a trade-off, but you are getting more pros than cons. Put on the Anastasia sniper for the bullet velocity and range and accuracy increase. You get a reduction of hip fire accuracy and aim down sight speed, but look at all that green. The damage flies up and the range flies up, and it may look like the control goes down a little bit, but trust me, that's pretty much just the aim down sight speed, so it's not a big deal. Throw on the SVT 40 PU scope, and here's the thing, you get a reduction of aim down sight speed, but you guys have to remember one thing in particular. Optic glint is visible to enemies, so when you do use this scope, your glint's going to be visible. If you don't want that, then you can use the G16. Now I don't really recommend it because I feel like the SVT 40 PU scope is better, but the G16 will still get the job done if you don't have it or if it's your personal preference. Throw in the Anastasia paddock for the accuracy and recoil during sustained fire, plus increased flinch resistance. You get a reduction of initial firing recoil and aiming stability, but then we're going to throw on tight grip for accuracy and and recoil during sustained fire. You put on hand for the aim down sight speed increase. Throw on hatch grip for the recoil control and flinch resistance with no cons, which is fantastic. Throw on the 6.5 Sakura 75 round drum, just because this is overall the best one to throw on there. The Clauser, I mean, it decreases fire rate, which is basically this gun's pride and joy. Also increases the recoil control and accuracy, which makes this really not the best build. If you put on the 30 round, I mean, you get increased fire rate, but you get a decrease of bullet velocity and range and damage. So that's also not a good build. This probably would actually be a pretty good SMG, but that would be something I have to try out later on. And this, I mean, it's borderline the same as this, just less bullets. So it's just like, why would you have less when you can have more? Throw on lengthen for the increased bullet velocity and carbon foregrip for the vertical recoil control and hipfire accuracy, all about the vertical recoil control. You get a reduction of aim down sight speed. Next is one of my personal favorite guns, which is the Nikita. Now this thing is absolutely incredible. You throw on the MX silencer for the sound suppression, horizontal recoil control, vertical recoil control, and damage range. You get a reduction of aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. Not a big deal. We're going to move on to the Empress 613 mm BFA. You get an increase of recoil control, damage range, bullet velocity, decrease of aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed, movement speed, and aim walking movement speed. But look at all the green you get for the accuracy, damage, and range, which is the most important thing where you guys are using mid to long range ARs anyway. Move on to the SVT 40PU scope. Like I said before, if you don't have this, you can use the G16 to be completely fine. Throw on the ZAC MS for the horizontal recoil control and aiming stability. You get a decrease of aim down sight speed, movement speed, hip fire accuracy, and sprint to fire, but that accuracy increase is absolutely essential. Throw on brace for the initial fire and recoil. Throw on hand for the aim down sight speed. Throw on hatch script for the recoil control and increased flinch resistance. Throw on the 50 round mags, and the reason I don't use the 60 round Sakura mags is because here's the thing: you get recoil control increase, but this thing already has 0 recoil with this build, and the cons are damage range, bullet velocity, and reload quickness. So why would you want to sacrifice your bullet velocity and damage range when you can just use this and still have 0 recoil? Throw on lengthen for the increased bullet velocity, and throw on bipod for the recoil control when mounted, crouched, or prone. Trust me, this is essential to this build, and it'll be absolutely beneficial to have on there. If you don't have it on there, the alternative would be M19, but this is so much better, especially when you're going to be crouched, mounted, or prone when using ARs in the first place. Last but not least is a fan favorite. We're going to use the Cooper carbine. Now we're going to throw on the MX silencer for the sound suppression, horizontal recoil control, vertical recoil control, and damage range. You get a reduction of aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed. No big deal. Move on to the 18-inch Ragdoll G45 for the bullet velocity and range and recoil control. You get a reduction of hipfire accuracy, fire rate, and aim down sight speed, but trust me, we're going to take care of that. We're going to move on to the SVT 40PU scope. You don't have that, use the G16. Use the Cooper custom padded for the accuracy and recoil during sustained fire, plus flinch resistance. You get a decrease of initial firing recoil and aiming stability, but we're going to throw on tight grip for accuracy and recoil during sustained fire. If you don't want to use that, you can use hard scope just to use increased recoil control. You can throw on hand for the aim down sight speed. You can use hatched grip for recoil control and flinch resistance. 9mm 60 round drum for the recoil control and accuracy, and increased fire rate, which is one of the things that was negative in the beginning, plus increased aim down sight speed, which was another thing that was negative. Bullet velocity and range is decreased, bullet penetration damage, and reload quickness. We're going to take care of that with these compressed rounds, which increases the fire rate. This thing's going to be a demon with really great damage, insane fire rate, and 0 recoil. And just to top it all off, we're going to throw on the carbon foregrip for the vertical recoil control and hip fire accuracy. Just something you actually can hit fire, surprisingly. So if you get some close range gunfights, you'll actually most likely win. And the vertical recoil, you're going to be able to take on long distance fights, and it'll feel like you're lasering them. Slight reduction of aim down sight speed, but that is the top 5 ARs. Let me know which one helped you out in the comment section down below, and let me know which meta you want me to cover next.